A recent Delaware Chancery Court decision regarding a healthcare deal could have far-reaching implications for M&A. Insurer Cigna sued Audax Health Solutions regarding a merger with a unit of UnitedHealth. The court's decision invalidated some provisions that are frequently used in deals. Hughes Hubbard partner Ken Lefkowitz is here to explain how this ruling could be a game changer. Thanks for joining me, Ken.
Hey, Chris, nice to be here.
Now, Ken, could you unpack the details of this ruling?
Sure. This case involved a private company acquisition. The acquisition, you can buy a company two ways: either purchase all the shares from the shareholders, or you can acquire a company through a merger. If you do it through a merger, you need approval of a majority or 2/3 of the shareholders. And if it's approved, all the other shareholders get cashed out, so you don't need to get everyone approved it. In this transaction, 2/3 of the shareholders approved the transaction. Cigna, who owned about 15%, did not approve the transaction, and their approval was not required under law, which is all good, except what happened in this case is in the transaction, the company tried to impose certain post-closing obligations on all the shareholders, including Cigna. One dealt with requiring them to give a release, which meant that Cigna would never sue the company that it was a shareholder for any liabilities post-closing. And two, it would be required to pay certain indemnification, which could be unlimited. What Cigna said I didn't sign up for that deal. I expected to get paid $30 a share, and that's all I should be, and I shouldn't have to lose any of that money. And since I didn't approve that, I shouldn't have to pay it.
Okay, so why is this so important for deals in general?
It's important because it's been a device that's been used over the years to avoid having to get shareholder approval from every single shareholder to a transaction. In a public company deal, you don't need to do that, but typically a public company deal, all the shareholders get paid at the closing and there are no post-closing obligations. In private company deals, you typically look for things such as an indemnification and release, which is post-closing, and people would like to avoid to have to go talk to every shareholder.
So is this ruling changing the way that companies are approaching deals now?
Yes, I think that right now it's very difficult to do a deal as a merger transaction that we really are doing, and I'm actually working on one right now. We were discussing last night specifically why we won't do it as a merger transaction when you're representing a buyer, because you want to make sure that, unlike the Cigna case, where the buyer of the company couldn't sue Cigna if there was a problem with the company post-closing, you want to make sure that you're able to do that. So you're doing it as a full stock purchase, which requires you to get all the shareholders to sign up the deal. The only way to avoid that is if, when the shareholders are issued their stock on day one, they enter into what's called the shareholders agreement, which provides what's called the drag-along right, which says that if you get a majority of the shareholders approve a deal, then everyone has to sell on the same terms. But in that document, you must say that you'll be subject to indemnity obligations, release obligations, et cetera. So going forward, if people do that, you probably would still be able to do merger transactions.
Oh, okay, so are there some types of companies that are more affected by this?
I'd say technology companies tend to be more affected because they have larger number of shareholders. You really could be any industry where you have lots of shareholders, because if you have 5 shareholders, you can get them all to sign. But when you have 40 shareholders, when you're paying your employees with equity, you're paying your consultants, you could easily get up to 40, 50, 60 shareholders, and then it just becomes a logistics. My view is you can always still do it. I had another transaction earlier this year. We did have 60 shareholders. It took us a week to get everyone to sign it, but you could do it. But I think technology companies tend to have the most shareholders.
Okay. Well, thanks, Ken. I'm Chris Nolter from The Deal.